Hi everybody. In this video we are going to look at kind of an offshoot category called the thiols. It's not one of the original 12 that we kind of named at the beginning of the class. This is kind of its own little weird subdivision. So thiols are interesting because thiols are characterized by the presence of sulfur in their makeup. And so if you look at sulfur on the periodic table, it's just below oxygen. And when you look at columns in the periodic table, the compounds tend to kind of act very similarly to each other. And so sulfur reacts a lot like oxygen does. In fact, they've surmised that maybe if you had some kind of divergent type of uh, biological entity like aliens or something like that, that if they were going to breathe something other than oxygen, it might be sulfur. So the thiols, or mercaptans, as they're also known, are sulfur analogs of alcohols. So instead of an O in the hydroxyl group, it has an S. Okay, so for instance, this is methanol. Its thiol kind of uh, compatriot or analog would be uh, methane thiol, is what they call it. But you can see that this oxygen is replaced by a sulfur. So the thiols contain a sulfhydryl, not a hydroxyl, but a sulfhydryl or mercapto group. That's the SH instead of the hydroxyl group. So this little functional group there, that's called a sulfhydryl or a mercapto. Oops, let me erase that there. There we go. So again, this is methanol. This is methane thiol, or methyl mercaptan is another way to say it. Now, why we even talk about thiols and what makes them important is that thiols are present as final products of decomposition. These are things that are going to contribute to the smell of decomposition because sulfur stinks. Sulfur smells like rotten eggs. And so things that have sulfur in them will smell bad. Now you might think, well, where's this sulfur coming from? Well, the sulfhydryl group is found on a lot of amino acids that build up the proteins in your body. And so as your proteins decompose, these thiols get released, and it's one of the things that makes a dead body smell. So that's why we talk about them, is that that's what they're going to do. They're going to make dead bodies smell. Now, we're going to talk about some common thiols, and they all have bad smells. So some common thiols, one is methyl mercaptan or methane thiol. It's the same thing. This is what makes your urine smell after you eat asparagus. Okay, you eat asparagus and the next day your pee stinks. That's because of methyl mercaptan or methane thiol. Ethyl mercaptan is actually used as a tracer for natural gas. Uh, I always ask people, have you ever smelled natural gas? And they're like, yeah, I've smelled it. I'm like, no, you haven't, because natural gas is methane. You can't smell methane. Methane has no smell. And so if it has no smell, how would you know it's leaking? Well, they add ethyl mercaptan in it because, again, if you kind of think about what natural gas smells like, it smells kind of like eggs. That's because of the ethyl mercaptan or ethane thiol. That's what you're actually smelling. Otherwise, you'd never know you had a gas leak and you'd blow your house up. The last one is kind of a longer one. It's 3-methyl-1-butane thiol. That's kind of a long name. Now, if you think about it though, okay, so 3-methyl, okay, so that's on the 3 carbons. So, or we'll even go backwards. Butane thiol. Butane is 4 carbons. Meth, eth, prop, but. So this has to include the parent chain has to include the sulfhydryl. That would be the parent chain. 1, 2, 3, 4 carbons. That's the butane. Okay, the 1 carbon has to be on the sulfhydryl. So there we go. That's why we number that number 1. The 3-methyl is because the methyl group here is on the 3 carbons. So 3-methyl-1-butane thiol. Now you've all smelled 3-methyl-1-butane thiol, though you may not know it. This is the scent of skunk. So that's what skunks smell like. Again, rotten smells. All of these smells of thiols are rotten. Okay, so That finishes it for the thiols, the smell, the components that help a dead body smell. Next time we're going to start talking about aldehydes.